I'm Brittany. This is Chuaning, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. We continue to read Volume 6 of Erha. We read for a couple of hours. We take a break somewhere around halfway through to go back to the Gaywatch break room, which is where you just came from. There are trigger warnings and also an invite to the public Discord down in the description box. The public Discord has mostly bookish things, which is what you're here for. So if you're wanting to theorize about Erha, if you're a new reader, or just chat about Erha, there are both spoilers and non-spoiler channels for Erha. So if you're wanting to hang out in between streams, you can do that. If you would like to chat with me more about what we are reading in Erha currently, there are book chats that happen at 2:15 on the Tuesdays and Thursdays that we have streams. So just before this, I am chatting with patrons and YouTube members about whatever the hell we read in the previous stream. Before we get started, however, I got two things I gotta talk to you about. Just two quick things. First of all, I don't know who in the chat is a fan of Kim Porsche and Shine, which is the new series from the guys who did Kim Porsche, Mile and Oppo. You probably have heard of them because of Kim Porsche. Somebody tweeted about my reaction to the first episode of Shine, and Mile liked and commented an emoji on it. This was like the video. There was a link to the video, as in like the thumbnail, as in my face. And Mile, kin of Kin Porsche, acknowledged both the girl who tweeted this and mine existence. I'd heard that this had happened last night before I went to sleep, but I hadn't had a chance to see like what had actually happened. And then someone dropped it in my inbox over on Tumblr. So you can see it on the Gaywatch Tumblr. But that's, I'm sorry. I'm going to be insufferable about this for a while. 'Cause that's, it hasn't even fully attached as reality like in my brain, and I realize it's just a little acknowledgement. It's like, it's, you know, he I'm sure he comments and reacts to a bunch of people who are like reacting to things because, you know, it's the release week of a brand new show and he's doing all this stuff. I understand. I am realistic about it. However, the zing of that kind of interaction is still gonna live rent-free in my head for like the rest of time. I'm still not okay with it. I'm not okay about it, all right? Secondly, and most importantly, actually, I apologize if this current mic situation is only like passable at the moment. Because the one that I usually use, I've just finally given up on. It's impossible, and it's only gotten more impossible. And so I'm relying on this one, this white. It's very pretty, but it's like not the best. And as it just so happens, a lovely patron by the name of Heather reached out to me and asked if she could buy me a new microphone. And when I was like, well, there is a microphone that I've been like lusting after for a very long time now, because it is a like legit microphone that so many of the uber professionals who I know and love on YouTube use. There's this one that like so I just, and she's just getting it for me. So I have a brand new, very good microphone on the way here that I will be unboxing over on the Patreon. for free members and everybody, and crying over and explaining more about how I've been struggling with audio and lower end microphones for 5 years. And a woman by the name of Heather just swooped in and solved my problem. So apologies if until then we just have this kind of okay audio for the reading streams. But the holy grail of microphones is coming to me now. And I'll be blubbering to Heather about it in the gift opening video. So yes, please, everybody say thank you, Heather. I'm going to have y'all do it again, obviously. I just dropped the bookmark. I'm going to have y'all do it again, obviously, when the mic actually gets here and you can hear how great it sounds. But yes, everybody thank Heather. Everybody thank her repeatedly because she did something really huge and very, very generous. What in the hell chapter were we on now that my bookmark has fallen out? Right, we're on chapter 189. Okay. We're on page 103 for chapter 189, which is called Shizune, You're the Best. It was quiet in the room, rendering the sound of their breaths and the pounding of their hearts louder in their ears. The air was redolent with some scent, musky but sweet. Mo-run shifted on the bed, drawing Chu-Wan-ning into his arms from behind and planting gentle kisses on his eyelids and the nape of his neck. Both were covered in sweat, their bodies feverish as they lay pressed together, damp skin sticking to damp skin, limbs entwined in a clinging embrace. Chu-Wan-ning felt faint. He didn't dare dwell on what they'd just done. The very thought was absurd. But his heart was warm and glowing. Gentle waters surged beneath his ribcage, about to spill over. Mo-run heard the man in his arms murmur, "What about you?" Huh? Mo-run went still, taken aback. Chu-Wan-ning cleared his throat. You, he began. He turned in the darkness, lifting those bright eyes to meet Mo-run's. The way I'd forgotten that this means that Mo-run hasn't... I was not prepared, excuse me. I thought we were just going to cut to the morning after. I'm short-circuiting. Excuse me. Did I just read this sentence? I don't know. I'm on another planet. Even in the gloom, Mo-run imagined he could see the flush on Chu-Wan-ning's cheeks. You're still... Chu-Wan-ning hesitated for a long beat, incapable of voicing his thoughts. In the end, he lowered his lashes. I'll help you. Realization broke over Mo-run and his heart ached, among other things probably. Embracing Chu-Wan-ning, he said, "Why are you so silly? It doesn't matter. That can wait." This having been the man who prioritized his experience over everything else in every realm of the physical being that you can occupy. Sex, power, money, survive. And he's like, no. I'm fine. That's not about that. Okay. All right. We are what? A page into this chapter? Okay. Did I just hit the mic? I probably did. Oh, no. Excuse me. That was the bottom of the first page of this chapter. We need to be correct about these things. I'm not silly, Chu-Wan-ning said stiffly. He rejected the word. Aren't you the one being silly? Aren't you uncomfortable like this? Morun coughed awkwardly. Once you're asleep, I'll go take a bath and... But Chu Wan-ning would not be dissuaded. I'll help you. It's all right. Morun hastily stopped him. Chu Wan-ning fell silent. His clumsiness in bed was shameful. How could he give Morun any pleasure? Morun's excuse of taking a bath later was probably merely thrown out to placate him. What Morun really meant... Oh, no. It's time for relatable content from Chu Wan-ning once again. What Morun really meant was that using his own hand would be better than relying on Chu Wan-ning's skills, or lack thereof. At this thought, his eyes slowly dulled. Forget it then, if you don't want it. Morun paused. In the afterglow of his own pleasure, Chu Wan-ning's voice wasn't controlled as it usually was. His usual cool detachment had fled, leaving his dissatisfaction and indignance sharp and vivid. How silly could this man be? How could Morun not want it? He wanted it more than anything. He wanted this night to be eternal, for the torrential downpour outside to fall forever. He wanted to drown in pleasure with Chu Wan-ning in this inn for the rest of time, to devour the man in his arms until their flesh and souls were one. He wanted to see Chu Wan-ning tormented to the point of sobbing. He wanted to leave his unmistakable mark inside this man's body. But it would hurt him. I'm taking a few seconds of a mental break to tell you that during that passage, I thought of all things, a Dua Lipa song from her latest album. It's the best song all on the album. It's called Falling Forever, and it's deeply relevant to this moment, and it's just a great fucking banger of a song. You should go listen to it. We now resume our regularly scheduled programming of me trying desperately hard not to sob on camera. He remembered the high fever Chu Wan-ning had run after the first time Morun had taken him in... We're doing this sentence over. He remembered the high fever Chu Wan-ning had run after the first time Morun had taken him in the past life. There was a typo in there. Even now, Morun couldn't forget his face in the aftermath, skin pale and lips cracked. He wanted to take it slowly. It didn't matter how much effort he had to put in to resist his desires. He wanted Chu Wan-ning's first time to be good. And he wanted him to feel pleasure and enjoyment in every subsequent dalliance. He wanted him to savor the sensation and sink into its depths with him. But Chu Wan-ning had clearly misunderstood. Morun kissed his brow. How could I not want it? He said huskily. What are you thinking? Chu Wan-ning said nothing. Can't you see the state I'm in? Morun's fiery, labored breaths fanned his ear. I'm this hard, and you somehow think I don't want you, dummy. So, maybe this is your first time reading a series with me, in which case, hi. There are certain things and certain moments that happen in a series like this in which you and I get closer. We bond in so many ways over the course of a series like this. It's one of the beautiful things about doing this stream. We get to know each other. And that's why I do my best in the moment to actually say things as they happen and as I think of them. Because I love this, right? So we're going to get to know each other real quick. Because I must admit that a well done this is how hard you make me moment kills me. It kills me. Kills me dead. I love it. It's a trope. It's a very, very specific trope that I happen to love dearly. So I'm not doing well, guys. We're still, hang on. Yeah, we've done this much of the chapter, and I've been thoroughly assaulted in different ways. I just feel like you should know that about me. Chuaning's temper flared. Call me dumb again and I'll cut your head off. Mo-Run had caught his hand and tugged it downward. The instant it met Mo-Run's body, Chuaning was too startled to manage a harsh word. Steam, I'm sorry, I glimpsed the next line. Steam seemed to rise from his ears. Look what you've done to me. It's literally that line specifically. Even in a super specific trope moment, it's that line specifically when it gets said. Something about it works every time. On me. We are now best friends, by the way. We're bros. We're buddies. We're besties. Wrapped in soft darkness, Mo-Run kissed Chuaning's eyelids again, then ducked to capture his mouth. He suckled and licked at Chuaning's lips, intoxicated by infatuation. After several more kisses like these, neither of them could take any more. The desire in the room thickened. As their mouths entwined, so did their legs. They ground against each other, in the blaze of lust almost enough to light up the dark. In the haze, Mo-Run heard Chuaning mumble, dissatisfied and embarrassed, with all his habitual stubbornness, I also want to make you feel good. The last syllables came out shaking, as though shame threatened to engulf them. Mo-Run's heart was close to melting, and his neglected cock was an angry red. Chuaning's hand was still pressed against him, the ready heat emanating from his palm to the small of his back. Chuaning could feel just how formidable that weapon described in the cultivation rankings was in its state of arousal. Of course! This might be the silliest thing I've ever missed. Why haven't I been anticipating this moment from the beginning of this scene? It was so don't live. I mentioned in the book chat today that chat's funnier than I am. Always has been, always will be. And Liv with the unit has found an operator. Ma'am. So thick, so hard, and so heated, even through the fabric it strained against. That ferocious thing would never fit in his mouth. But are we gonna try? Making love with a man like this... Woo! Making love with a man like this would be life-threatening. She's making this scene impossible to get through. Chuaning finally realized Mo-Run's insistence that it would hurt wasn't a baseless worry. Hurt was the least of it. He'd be torn to pieces, rent asunder, his whole body split apart. But thinking how Mo-Run had taken care of him, Chuaning mustered up courage from who knew where, Or perhaps he'd always been able to steel himself so ruthlessly, and bent down to try. Mo Run panicked. It was hard enough for him to maintain control as it was. If Chu Wanning really took him into his mouth, he feared the last of his gentleness would be reduced to ash by the flames of lust. A man entirely at the mercy of his desire was a beast devoid of reason. It makes total sense as to why Mo Run thinks that. That is a line of purely distilled Mo Run POV. A man entirely at the mercy of his desire was a beast devoid of reason. He knew himself. He knew himself. He'd crave the heights of pleasure. He'd madly take and take. He stopped Chu Wanning, voice ragged. Don't, Wanning, you... It's fine. I'm only doing the same as you. You can't. Mo Run's voice was like water on the verge of boiling. He swallowed. I won't be able to stop myself. Chu Wanning didn't understand. Stop yourself from what? He asked, confused. Mo Run cursed under his breath. He couldn't take it anymore. Chu Wanning's scent, his voice, his body were slowly prizing apart his self-imposed chains, burning him to the ground. After catching his breath, Mo Run abruptly stood. He turned Chu Wanning over and pinned him face down in the bedding. Before Chu Wanning could react, he felt himself shoved into the sheets with force. Mo Run's fervid body pressed down on him, engulfing his own. In that instant, he felt something of terrifying proportions thrust up against his ass through the layer of thin fabric. Chu Wanning cried out, a whimper softer and more lewd than he'd anticipated. His face flushed, hands wringing at the bedding as he bit his lip, refusing to make another sound. What was it that Mo Run couldn't stop himself from doing? Chu Wanning was beginning to understand. Mo Run ground against him through his underclothes, the rest of his words a growl. Stop myself from wanting to put it in, from wanting to fuck you. How have you not realized? Those scalding breaths fell upon the shell of Chu Wanning's ear. Mo Run braced one strong arm on the bed and wrapped his other around Chu Wanning's hips, thrusting forward and panting roughly. After a moment of ineffectual grinding, Mo Run patted Chu Wanning's rump and said, "Press your legs together." Hey! Wait, this makes sense. This makes total sense. God, I always forget the word for this. Inter something. That's gonna bug me, but it'll come to me. Thank you, Ninin, intercurl. Thank you, intercurl. Mind a haze, Chu Wanning did as he was told, but he didn't feel Mo Run move. As he made to turn around, he felt something hot, hard, and thick thrust between his thighs. The sensation ripped a gasp from him, eyes losing focus as his scalp prickled. We should probably start here. You can't go virgin to somebody of Mo Run's size. You can't, like, physically speaking, no. Not without some sort of magical, like literal magical implement or spell or something. I've completely lost where I am. We're gonna repeat a sentence. Mind a haze, Chu Wanning did as he was told, but he didn't feel Mo Run move. As he made to turn around, he felt something hot, hard, and thick thrust between his thighs. The sensation ripped a gasp from him, eyes losing focus as his scalp prickled. Mo Run pulled his underclothes away to reveal his fully erect cock flushed dark from arousal and leaking clear fluid at its tip. It pressed between Chu Wanning's thighs, surrounded by the slick, soft heat of the flesh there. Mo Run groaned in pleasure. Gripping Chu Waning's waist, he drove his hips forward, fucking into Chu Waning's thighs. Chu Waning had never even imagined such a thing was possible. That thickness rubbed obscenely against him, pulsing as it ground between his legs. Chu Waning was going limp, his straight spine melting as his eyes went glassy. He was delirious. He couldn't sense a thing beyond the sharp thrill of the man he loved thrusting against him. He gasped for breath in silent pants, turning his face and burying it in the bedding, his hair falling loose. Mo Run's cock rubbed several times against his entrance. If he lined it up and pressed in, he could wholly take his shizun. He could have this unyielding man beneath him. Inflamed by the threat of being overpowered, being run through, Chu Waning's spent cock hardened once more alongside Mo Run's quickening pace. I mean, we've been new. We knew that Chu Waning was just, his psyche was begging for that kind of treatment. We knew. But still, seeing it in the moment, fully realized, still validating somehow. Mo Run's hips snapped against his movements fierce and fervent, unbridled and insatiable. The slap of flesh on flesh echoed in the room. With each thrust, coarse hair rubbed against the tender skin of Chu Waning's thighs, the abrasion driving him further and further into rapture. Shizun, tighten up. The pleading voice of the man behind him was so low, so thick with desire. What could he do but obey? This stubborn man, this stubborn, unyielding, don't tell me what to do man, has encountered a circumstance in which he just obeys. I see you, meat bun. Yes, just like that, even tighter. Mo Run's reason was drowned beneath the rising tide of lust. In the heat of the moment, carnal instinct gradually swallowed him. He arched his neck, swallowing with difficulty. I think he's progressed to... I'm sorry, I'm commenting before I even read the line. I'm so not here right now. If you think all of this is operating, you're incorrect. He says, Shizun, baby, you're so hot inside. I think we have fully progressed to he's just fully imagining doing what he cannot yet do because Chu Waning is so not prepared for it, neither emotionally or physically. So of course, this makes sense. Why does everything she do make sense? He was referring to the space between his legs, but those words still sounded unbearably vulgar. Those low, absorbed mumblings, that crass and crude language, yet somehow none of it seemed dirty. Chu Waning thought perhaps he'd lost his mind. As he listened to Mo Run's panting, he felt feverish, his thoughts spinning out of his control. Is it good? He asked softly. See, that alone is hot. You know? Just that. Having to... What is it about that? Just asking? Like, why is that so unbelievably hot, like, every single time? That, I feel like, is a little bit more of a universal thing, as opposed to the very specific niche that we talked about earlier. And of course, maybe it's just my bias, but this feels like a more universal thing. A universal little detail that kind of gets everyone. Am I wrong? Am I way off base? This is how we get closer, you and I. Yeah. Mo Run says yeah. In case you were just dying in suspense with how Mo Run would reply to that question, he says yeah. When Mo Run opened his eyes, they were bright and wild. He bent, broad shoulders enfolding Chu Waning as he held him steady. He pressed him into the bed, their bodies inseparable, his hips still thrusting, frantic heat washing over them both. He sought Chu Waning's mouth, seizing him by the jaw to kiss him with a desperate hunger, their tongues entwined, sliding wetly. Mo Run's cock pushed between Chu Waning's legs, thrusting with such force that it sent the bed swaying. Are we surprised? No, we're not. It strove to press deeper, Mo Run's toes going white with the exertion in the bedsheets. Under this brutal onslaught, Chu Waning felt as if he really were being taken. Cloaked in the night's darkness, he let himself fall prey to his basest urges without shame, tilting his head to return Mo Run's passionate kisses, saturated with adoration. In this position, on all fours with his head wrenched back, he looked debauched beyond measure, a wanton and tempting sight. Between the pounding of his heart and the fervor of the kiss, he couldn't catch his breath. Dizzy, Chu Waning glimpsed another fragmented scene. Crap! We'd been having such a good time, and no more dreams had come along, and now here we are. God, when it's so good, it makes you forget about the fucking avalanche coming down the hill. You're too distracted by the guy screwing in front of you that you forget about the avalanche coming down towards them. Yeah. Where it was, he didn't know. But he was also on a bed, a very wide one, spread with blood-red sheets. Their legs were tangled, their breaths coming fast. Sweat steamed from their skin, heady with desire. They were in the same position. Mo Run was fucking him from behind, grabbing his jaw to kiss him. But in this scene, his body had been stretched open, that massive cock pushing fiercely into him. Chu Waning didn't know how long Mo Run had been fucking him like this. There seemed to be some salve, so it didn't hurt as much. All was hot and wet as Mo Run drove hard against a bundle of nerves deep inside him. Someone was moaning, panting, whining, their voice weakened to a whisper. Who was it? Was it him? Mo Run pounded into him with no sign of stopping. Instead, he slowly increased his pace. Chu Waning's body was filled to bursting and flooded with pleasure. He felt he was being speared through, yet somehow it felt so good. He was addicted to this feeling, like he'd been trained for it. Legs going limp as Mo Run fucked into him while still instinctively pushing back, grinding against Mo Run and taking him deeper yet. The discomfort he felt was indescribable. It was as though there was an insatiable flower pistil inside him that only sex could gratify. It was like the strongest aphrodisiac in the world, capable of destroying the mightiest men. He was falling into pleasure, reciprocating it. Gripped by ecstasy, a low whine escaped his throat. Who was it? What a strange scene. Such a bizarre dream. Illusion. Reality. What was this really? We were just talking about this in the book chat. We were just talking about this. I thought it was gonna be a while before we had to deal with this. Are we having to deal with this? I don't know, but we're getting, it's going further down the road than I thought we would. Already. Fucking shit. Where am I? Okay. Chu Waning, does it feel good when I fuck you? You look like such a slut when you're taking me like this. Relax, you're squeezing me too tight. I'll come inside you, come for you. Everything was disjointed, unintelligible, surreal, yet it seemed to have happened just this way. What was going on? That man's voice sounded like Mo Run's, but not the Mo Run he knew. Mo Run had never spoken in such a twisted way, never. Chu Waning couldn't hear clearly. It probably wasn't real. His head was swimming, his thoughts a mess. As the night wore on, the snapping of Mo Run's hips grew rougher, more fevered. He braced his feet against the bed, heaving for breath, the pillows and blankets a disheveled snarl. Finally, Mo Run pulled Chu Wanning into a bruising embrace. They were like rutting beasts, the one on top craving an ardent kiss, the one beneath yearning to entwine with sloppy urgency. Wanning, Shizun. Mo Run's voice was hoarse and low, mad with love and desire. Baby. Hands kneading Chu Wanning's waist. Mo Run's full buttocks tensed ferociously as he bucked forward. He was close to climax, his gaze almost vicious. After burying himself between Chu Wanning's thighs with such intensity it seemed like he might shatter him completely, he grabbed the man in his arms, biting and sucking at his earlobe, his nape. Mo Run pressed his heaving chest to Chu Wanning's sweat-soaked back, his lucidity hanging by a thread. With a low grunt, nearly undone by the pleasure, he reached down to guide his thick cock, throbbing with need, to Chu Wanning's entrance. Now having experienced the full ferocity of Mo Run's arousal, Chu Wanning finally began to panic. Oh my god! I wonder if this was on purpose, which makes me think it was on purpose. That flowed so seamlessly into what was actually going on that I thought we were still in the dream, but we're not. That was slick. That was smooth. Either that or I'm just so out to lunch that she could very easily trick me in this moment. But am I the only one that happened to... See, thank you. Selfie. Smooth transition. Thank you so much. That was witchcraft. I don't know what the hell that was, but I firmly thought, Jesus. And then of course the point being that it's happening for Chu Wanning as well. Both the dreams and what's happening right now are so entwined that it is now entwined for the reader. Stop that. Didn't you say you wouldn't put it in? Hold on. Breaths heavy, Mo Run kissed his neck. He swallowed, then turned to whisper against his cheek. Don't worry, I won't, but this was all the control Mo Run had left. I want to come right here. He pressed the smooth head of his cock against Chu Wanning's... Oh, this is also where we get closer, because when it comes to descriptions around holes, that's a little bit of a squick for me. So you'll forgive me if I just kind of skate over those moments, like now. He pressed the smooth head of his cock against Chu Wanning's clenching hole. Mo Run swore under his breath, then pushed himself between Chu Wanning's legs with renewed violence that sent shattering pleasure building to its peak. Stroking himself, he pressed his cock flush against Chu Wanning's hole and released everything with a growl. Spurt after spurt covered that tight furl, dripping down Chu Wanning's thighs and smearing onto the sheets. The sight was unspeakably obscene as the musky smell of sex filled the room. Chu Wanning shook minutely, shivering under Mo Run's climax. Reaching down, Mo Run wrapped his fingers around Chu Wanning's stiff cock. He stroked him off, his touch tender but insistent. Shame overwhelmed Chu Wanning. No more, he mumbled, face flaming. Stop touching me, I've already... Eyes sparkling, Mo Run whispered in a voice soft with infatuation. I know you already came. Chu Wanning was more stubborn than anyone. He snapped, teary-eyed. Don't say that word. What word? Chu Wanning pressed his lips together. Oh, Mo Run gave him a broad smile. Okay. He kissed him, his hand never stopping for a moment. Shizun, I want to see you climax again. Yeah, you don't want me to use that word? Okay, there's like tons of other options. Chu Wanning was at the mercy of this young man's skills, swiftly brought to a second orgasm. This kind of drawn-out pleasure was more than he could endure, to say nothing of how his mind had felt fogged this whole time, fragmented scenes swimming across his vision as voices echoed in his ears. He felt so drained, so sleepy. Wan-ning. He heard Mo Run calling out to him from behind, so gentle, tender, adoring. Their most primal urges sated, the two gradually caught their breath. Mo Run caressed him, kissed him, thanked him, drawing him into his arms as if protecting a great treasure. Chu Wan-ning, delirious and naked, stared blankly into the night, resting his cheek on Mo Run's broad chest. At last, he slowly closed his eyes and fell into sleep. Once again, as close as they got, still not a sex scene. Not still not the penetration that most of us are waiting for. And yet, there is so much that, listen, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. It's not just about having a build-up to the type of penetration that most people are waiting for, right? It's not just about that. And it's not just about making every stair step hotter and more intense and all of that. It's also about that, but it's not just about that. It's about making every encounter emotionally relevant and weighty and part of the natural progression of both of these characters. That's the goal. At least it's the goal for me. It's the goal for me as a writer, and it's what I most want to see as a reader. And she has done that in spades. You could study the way she does it. That was a scene break, by the way. When Chu Wan-ning awoke the next morning, finally we get the morning scene. This is what I thought we were getting at the start of the chapter. And instead, I got cold clocked by intercurl. So now, it's the morning after. When Chu Wan-ning awoke the next morning, the early light had snuck into the room through a crack in the window. He could hear rain drumming down on the roof tiles. The downpour hadn't let up. His head ached dully. Scattered images from the night before flashed through his mind like the glint of fish scales in a dike, glimmering as they rose and fell in the water. He cast his mind after them, but those scales sank deeper and deeper, swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly he stiffened, cheeks blazing. He recalled what he and Mo Run had done last night. His first thought was to get up, but Mo Run was still holding him, sturdy arms wrapped around him, and chest pressed to Chu Wan-ning's spine as it rose and fell evenly. He was still asleep. So Chu Wan-ning waited, just like that, for who knew how long. Time felt unclear in that darkened room. It must have been a long time. Long enough that his arms seemed to go numb and his pounding heart gradually slowed. Long enough that it no longer felt so embarrassing. He finally turned to gaze at Mo Run's sleeping face. Mo Run was undeniably handsome. Such arresting looks were rare in this world. His brows, nose, and lips were all as beautiful as they could be. But just now, his brows were knit tight, as if something weighed heavy on his mind. Chu Wan-ning watched him silently for a long time. At last he couldn't resist. Very gently, he kissed Mo Run on the cheek, the first time he'd taken the initiative to do so. He nudged Mo Run's arms aside and swung his legs over the edge of the bed, pulling on his underclothes, then reaching for his pristine white robes. They were covered in suggestive wrinkles. Chu Wanning tried to smooth them out, to no avail. He had no choice but to put them back on and pray no one from Xisheng Peak would notice. He fixed his lapels, lost in thought. Warm arms came around him from behind. Chu Wanning jolted, though it only translated to a brief pause in his movements. Mo Run had woken some time ago. He sat up to hug Chu Wanning and kissed his earlobe. "Shizun." He didn't know what to say. This was their first true morning after in this life. Even Mo Run was struggling with the awkwardness of a newlywed, to say nothing of Chu Wanning. He let the silence stretch for a long moment before he softly said, "Good morning." "Morning. It's late." Chu Wanning put on his clothes without turning. Mo Run smiled. He reached out, helping Chu Wanning straighten the pendant around his neck. "This is for expelling cold. It has to be worn against the skin or it's no use." His voice was slightly hoarse. Struck by a late recollection, Chu Wanning whirled to face him. Last night, as they'd made love, he'd felt something fastened around Mo Run's neck, but he'd been too dizzy to get a good look. Now he saw it was a dragon blood crystal pendant, the exact twin of his own. Chu Wanning's jaw dropped. "Didn't you say at Rufeng sect that this was the last one? Then how—" He fell silent as Mo Run smiled back at him, dimples tucked softly into his cheeks, his eyes gentle. In a flash he understood Mo Run's little act of selfishness back then. Chu Wanning turned without another word, flustered, and bowed his head as he fiddled with his clothes. We should go back soon." He didn't look at Mo Run. "Any later and someone will notice." "Docile," Mo Run replied. "Of course. Whatever you say, Shizun." But in the next moment a devious heat flared in his chest once more. Grabbing Chu Wanning, who'd already pulled on his boots and was ready to stand, he nuzzled close and pressed a sweet kiss to his lips. "Don't be mad. I'll have to hold back once we return. I just want something to remember this by." Mo Run grinned, forestalling whatever Chu Wanning was about to say with a finger to his lips. "Shizun, you're the best." The sentence left Chu Wanning wandering in distraction until they passed back through the mountain gates. He didn't think those words applied to him. It was Mo Run who was the best. This young man was handsome, gentle, and loved him with an all-consuming focus. Sometimes even Chu Wanning felt it couldn't be real. Mo Run was too perfect. How could he belong to someone as boring as himself? A man who couldn't even muster a single soft endearment. But when Mo Run looked at him, his expression was earnest, without the slightest hint of falsehood. When Mo Run kissed him, he was so passionate, as if he'd handed control of his every breath to Chu Wanning, along with everything else. Last night, though Chu Wanning's actions had been clumsy and his words dry, and his mind had sometimes wandered, Mo Run hadn't been put off by any of it. When he woke in the morning, he still wanted to kiss Chu Wanning's lips and say, "You're the best." Not that romantic love should always save a person, and especially like a person's self-esteem, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it's a fundamental part of what lets someone pick their self-esteem up from the gutter and have to really fully acknowledge, because it's right in front of their face, being desired at all, not just in a romantic sense, being valued at all, not just in a romantic sense, but it's being valued in that way that for some people, and it's me, I'm bitches, this happened to me, being loved in that way makes you confront your low self-esteem in a all way, big and small, from the biggest things like we're seeing down to the tiniest little minutia. It just makes you confront that in a way that's obviously unique to romance, that doesn't, it just, the opportunities that come with that don't typically arise in other places. And while there are other places in which you can learn through all different types of love, your own self-esteem and your own self-worth, it's not always romance, but it can be romance. And as someone who also picked up their self-worth out of the gutter after a very long time of being loved well in a romantic sense, I co-sign this moment for Chuaning. I can vouch for it personally. Shizun. Returning to his senses, Chuaning saw Mo-run waving at him from beneath a red high-tongue patterned barrier. Where are you going? Let's go this way. The Red Lotus Pavilion's over there, but let's eat at Mungpo Hall before you go back. In the dining hall, Mo-run sat across from him as usual, but with a constant stream of passers-by chatting around them, they became self-conscious. They kept their heads down and applied themselves to their meal in silence. Those disciples who liked betting on Chuaning whispered among themselves, "Why isn't the Yu Hung elder talking to Mo Shishang today? Never mind talking, he's not even looking at him." That's weird. Mo Shishang isn't putting food in the Yu Hung elder's bowl either. Isn't he normally really clingy? What happened? Did they fight? Would you still sit at the same table as your Shizun after a fight? Fair enough. Everyone's like, they're not joined at the hip in their sickeningly lovey-dovey way. What's wrong? They saw Chuaning stand up to fetch another helping of kanji. When that white-clad figure swept past them, those busybodies fell silent, keeping their heads down and their mouths busy with their steamed buns. Only once Chuaning sat back down did they start chittering like rats once again. Have you noticed? There's something off about the Yu Hung elder today. Someone nodded. There is. I just can't tell what. His clothes, maybe? 6 pairs of eyes snuck curious glances at Chuaning. Finally, one of the disciples clicked his tongue. They're all wrinkled. They aren't as perfect as usual. The observers all realized this was indeed the case, but no one's thoughts drifted in any untoward direction. After some back and forth, they concluded that the Yu Hung elder must have dealt with some demons in the forbidden area of the backwards last night, or patched up a small heavenly rift. These disciples admired and revered him. At most, they might find him a source of occasional entertainment, but no one had ever treated him as a man of flesh and blood, a man with his own desires. Although Mo-run and Chuaning hadn't been as painstakingly careful as they might have been, although they had left behind many obvious clues, none of those disciples noticed or paid attention, which is understandable, actually, considering the way Chuaning has, for lack of a better word, cultivated his reputation and the way people perceive him. This actually tracks. This makes sense. People's minds aren't immediately going to go there. They're just simply not. When a man was placed on a holy altar and elevated by the masses, he must be silent and unmoving, cold and aloof. The slightest blunder and everything he did would be considered wrong. That was why, much later, when Mo Wei-yu and Chuaning's relationship was made known to the world, many felt their deity had crumbled. They were furious and disgusted, finding it unbelievable, unacceptable. No one remembered that to raise someone to the heights of worship, demanding he take every step along the path the masses dictated, demanding he live only according to the whims of the people, refusing to let him show the slightest hint of selfish desire, was, at its core, an act of cruelest coercion. That's the end of the chapter. And bang on 4 o'clock, too. We gotta take a break. But I must say, in addition to your Dua Lipa homework, which something about Dua Lipa makes it feel like deeply surreal that a song of hers even came up, I must say, this is deeply giving me another song, not by Dua, But as we go to the break, and before we come back for page 119, chapter 190, which is called Shizun's in seclusion again. In seclusion with whomst, I wonder. But as we go, as we have this break, go ahead and track down But Daddy I Love Him by Taylor Swift. And report back with any potential themes that you may have noticed that could apply to that last paragraph from this chapter of Chuaning. I dropped the bookmark. I have to pick that up. In the meantime, enjoy the break room. Alrighty? And I'll be back in just a few minutes to keep going with the second half of whatever the hell. I'm gonna do a couple laps around my house. I'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back as we continue to read Volume 6 of Erha. Somebody, who was it that said up there? Liv mentioned how she had forgotten to like the stream, so everyone else like it too. Yes, I am notoriously bad at doing this. So bad, in fact, that really I never do it because I always forget. But please like the stream if you're having a good time. Please drop a comment in the comment section if you're having a real damn blast, because I'm having a real damn blast, and I hope you are too. And that's a way that you can let me know that you're having a good time. So please like the stream. Thank you so much for liking it already if you have. And we also just skated right past the fact that we got apparently a glimpse into the future. Like, there's a future in which their relationship becomes known, which on one hand, kind of duh. Like, of course it would, from I am a reader partaking in the story type of situation. Yeah, of course that was going to happen. But then also, it's like she described kind of the shock and the backlash of it, which again is very like, well, yes, of course, given that Chuaning is Chuaning, this would be expected. But then also just, so like, it shouldn't be throwing me for a loop as much as it is, but it is, because it's the confirmation of a thing that we already knew was going to happen. Still has me some type of way. Also, during the break, I was so wrapped up in thoughts around Chuaning and Morun that as I boiled water for a fresh cup of tea, the kettle, clicked off saying that the water was ready. And I was like, great. So I went into my room and I got my mug. And I was halfway across the kitchen before I realized that I hadn't grabbed my mug. I had grabbed my headphones to go, because I was going to refill my headphones somehow. So that's how hard I was thinking about Chuaning and Morun during the break. How about y'all? We're on page 119 for chapter 190, which is called Shizin's in seclusion again, and we all have a guess as to what type of seclusion he's in. But we just don't know, do we? We can only suspect. After that day, Chuaning and Morun had no more opportunities to meet in private. The rain that had started that night continued to plague Sichuan, uncanny in its perpetuity. Dead fish and shrimp floated on the surging rivers outside Baidu City, and aquatic beasts dragged themselves up the riverbanks and roamed the city streets. The elders and disciples of Xisheng Peak were dispatched on endless exorcism missions that sent them rushing from village to village. Both Chuaning and Morun were powerful cultivators, and Shui Jingyang didn't waste their abilities by doubling them up. One was sent off to Three Gorges, while the other was sent to Yizhou. Countless beasts had been trapped within the Golden Drum Tower over the centuries of Rufeng's existence. In a single day, all had been unleashed upon the world again, creating chaos everywhere. Outside of Sichuan, grisly cases of demon beasts killing and eating civilians cropped up even in the once peaceful lands under protection of the upper cultivation realm, Yangzhou, Leizhou, Xuzhou. The sects sent so many members that the investigation into Xu Shuanglin's whereabouts slowed to a crawl. That's what we want to hear. Shit's so busy we're no longer investigating why shit's fucked. Well, slow to a crawl anyway. Morun was possessed of astonishing spiritual energy and had plenty of experience exorcising demons. He settled the case in Yizhou in just 4 days and hurried back to Xisheng Peak. Upon hearing that Chuaning had returned as well, he was naturally delighted. He rushed to the Red Lotus Pavilion without stopping to rest. He found its doors were shut tight against him. On inquiry, Shui Jingyang replied in confusion, "Yuheng's cultivating in seclusion. Didn't he tell you?" Again, Morun was shocked. Was Shizin injured? What do you mean? It's because of his cultivation method. He has to go into seclusion every 7 years. You helped take care of him last time. Have you already forgotten? Wait. No. This poor man. This poor fucking man. Mo-run, I swear to God. No, honey. Also, every 7 years, what is it with, the stoic ones having something going on every 7 years? I'm looking at you, Spock. Mo-run had. At that time, he had only been Chu-Wan-ning's disciple for around 6 months. Chu-Wan-ning had explained he'd been reckless when cultivating in his youth and injured himself. Though it wasn't a serious ailment, it required him to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days, once every 7 years. During those 10 days, Chu Zhongshu's cultivation withered, leaving him powerless, a mere mortal. He had to meditate in silence for his body to recover, and only left that state for 2 hours each day, during which he could drink some water and eat a little. Other than that, he absolutely mustn't be disturbed, or, heaven forbid, injured. To that end, Chu-Wan-ning surrounded the Red Lotus Pavilion with the most powerful barriers he possessed before beginning this ritual, allowing only Shui Jingyong, Shui Meng, Shimei, and Mo-run to enter and see him safely through this challenging period. The last time Chu-Wan-ning had gone into seclusion, tensions between teacher and student were high from the flower-plucking incident. Mo-run had just been punished and felt horribly disillusioned, so he hadn't cared for Chu-Wan-ning during his seclusion at all. He had instead run off to help his uncle tidy the library. As he thought back on it, unease rose in Mo-run's heart. "I'll go see him," he hastily said. Also, thank you for that brief but detailed recap. It helps certain brains. "There's no need," said Shui Jingyong. Before he went in, he said he would do the same thing as the last time. Shui Meng will stand guard for the first 3 days, Shimei the next 3, and you'll only need to do the last 4. It's garden variety stuff. But as always, anything Shimei does makes me nervous. I just want to see him. "What for?" Shui Jingyong smiled. "Didn't Meng and Shimei handle it perfectly well the last time? What are you so concerned about? Besides, if you go while Meng Er's there, you know he'll end up talking to you. We can't disturb Yu Hong with the racket." Mo-run agreed and promised to wait. But he couldn't sleep that night. The thought of Shui Meng and Chu-Wan-ning alone together in the Red Lotus Pavilion made his heart twinge with an unbearable jealousy. Of course he knew Shui Meng was an innocent soul with no interest in men, but he was bothered and uncomfortable. He just was. After tossing and turning half the night, he only managed to sleep for a handful of hours before daybreak. Upon waking, Mo-run felt he couldn't go on like this. He desperately wanted to see Chu-Wan-ning, even if only a peek from a distance. The Red Lotus Pavilion was closed and sealed with barriers, but Mo-run was Chu-Wan-ning's disciple. The barriers couldn't stop him. The door of green bamboo was basically decorative. Using his qinggong, Mo-run pushed off his toes in a leap that landed him nimbly within the courtyard. It was always Chu-Wan-ning's way to meditate in one of the green bamboo pavilions built over the lotus pond. Mo-run reasoned this time would be no different. He sought out that elegant pavilion rising over the rippling waters and the lotus leaves, its gauze hangings fluttering in the wind. As expected, Chu-Wan-ning sat in the center, white robes a pool around him. Shui Meng stood at his side. The sun was shining brightly, and he had tied up one of the snowy gauze panels so the sunlight could warm his shizun as well. The wintry morning light spilled into the pavilion, shining down on Chu-Wan-ning's pallid face. A flush slowly appeared on his cheeks as he sensed the warmth even in his trance. After a while, the repeated rounds of internal energy circulation left sweat beading on Chu-Wan-ning's brow. Shui Meng wiped it for him with a snowy handkerchief kept nearby. Once done, he felt compelled to look up. "That's weird," he mumbled, glancing left and right. "Why does it feel like someone's glaring at me?" Mo-run wasn't glaring. He was staring. He looked calm, but his heart was thundering. Hadn't Shui Meng spent a fraction too long wiping Chu Waning's brow with the handkerchief? Hadn't he been a little too close? His gaze a little too intimate? He silently heaped all sorts of baseless accusations upon Shui Meng's head. He was frustrated. He was annoyed. Mo Run couldn't bear another minute of it. Why should he make himself suffer like this? He turned to leave, but in his preoccupation he failed to muffle his footsteps. Shui Meng instantly hurled a cold, glinting throwing star filled with spiritual energy toward the sound. "Who's there?" he cried. The throwing star was nothing. Mo Run could catch it barehanded, but Shui Meng's shout made his heart jump up into his throat. He hastily leapt from the bamboo forest and over the lotus pond, landing softly within the pavilion. Shui Meng's eyes widened in shock. "What are you—" "Shh." Mo Run slapped a hand over his mouth, keeping his voice at a whisper. "Why are you so loud?" Shui Meng struggled before finally tearing himself from Mo Run's grip. Face flushed, he swiped at his tousled hair in a huff and snapped, "You've got some nerve asking me like that. What were you looking at, skulking around like a thief in the forest?" "I didn't want you to start shouting like you are right now." "It's not like Shizun can hear," Shui Meng exclaimed. "There's a silencing spell at work. Can't you see Shizun's already cast it on himself? Unless you undo it, he won't hear you even if you scream into his ear." Shui Meng kept babbling as Mo Run blinked in astonishment. "Silencing spell? Then why did Uncle say he didn't want me to disturb you two?" "Dad probably thought you were too tired after returning from Yuzhou and wanted you to rest," Shui Meng said in exasperation. "And you believed him? Why didn't you take a moment to think? When has Shizun ever not cast the silencing spell on himself so we'd feel more relaxed around him? You're seriously so stupid." Mo Run was speechless. Seeing that Mo Run was about to sit down, Shui Meng stopped him. "Oi, what do you think you're doing?" "In that case, I'll stay here too." "Who wants you to stay? It's my turn for the first 3 days. Are you trying to be a Shizun's pet again? Go away, don't try to take my job." "Can you even take care of him by yourself?" "Of course I can. It's not my first time watching over Shizun when he's in seclusion." Faced with Shui Meng's indignation, there wasn't much more Mo Run could say. He turned to leave, then stopped as he glimpsed a cup of tea on the table. The leaves were wide and dark, the scent delicate and pleasing. "Frost fragrance tea from Kunlun." "Huh? How could you tell?" Of course he could tell. This was Shui Meng's favorite tea. Shui Meng loved to bring Shizun all his favorite things without bothering to consider if those things suited his Shizun, or if Chu Waning liked them. "Frost fragrance tea is chilling by nature, and Shizun is sensitive to the cold. Won't he feel ill if you bring him such tea?" Shui Meng froze, face pink. He explained helplessly, "I didn't think that far. I just know frost fragrance is a fine tea. I switch it out for Bengal rose tea and add 2 spoonfuls of honey. Wait until he wakes up to steep it. I'll go make some desserts now. I'll bring them over once they're ready." Eager to salvage his dignity, Shui Meng hastily retorted, "He can't have sweets. He needs to fast for all 10 days. "I know, but Uncle said he can eat a little. Me versus the word little again. Mo Run waved his hand and left the pavilion. "See ya." Shui Meng stared at his retreating figure, lost in thought. Once Mo Run was out of sight, he lowered his head and snuck a look at the nape of Shizun's neck. He had noticed a faint bruise there yesterday. In the afternoon sunlight, it was clearer still. It didn't look like a mosquito bite, and neither was it a wound. He wasn't a teenager anymore. Perhaps he lacked certain experiences, but that didn't mean he hadn't heard of them. This mark on Chu Waning's neck made him deeply uneasy. He picked through all sorts of clues, returning to the sounds he'd heard that day in the backwoods. Oh my God! Are we connecting dots? He'd always told himself it was the sound of the wind. Nothing but the wind. Oh, sure. The wind. The grunting, moaning wind. Sure. Yet a vague foreboding rose in his heart once more. Beneath the winding tendrils of fog, a very colorful idea gradually took shape. In the warm sunlight, Shui Meng suddenly felt chilled for some reason. He shuddered, frowning. Shui Meng couldn't shake his unease. On the 6th day of Chu Waning's seclusion, he made up his mind. He was going to spy on Mo Run. I hope he's prepared for an eyeful. It was the last day Shimei was watching over Chu Waning. Mo-run was due to swap with him at midnight, but he had eaten dinner at Mengpo Hall early, then gone up to the Red Lotus Pavilion with a box of sweets. Shui Meng hadn't expected him to change places with Shimei before the agreed time. Leaving his food unfinished, he snuck out behind Mo-run, tailing him all the way to the doors of the Red Lotus Pavilion. Shui Meng hesitated a moment, then copied Mo-run's move from a few days ago and hopped over the wall. The sun had set, and the crescent moon was climbing the horizon. The sky had washed away its brilliant makeup, leaving a last smear of red at the corners of its eyes. The glory of that dazzling dusk had retreated almost fully, its paints and powders swallowed by the dark of night, the starry sky clear as water. Obligatory pause to absorb the absolutely rude levels of description. End prose. Mo-run, holding the food box, spotted Shimei in the distance. His back was to Mo-run. Oblivious to his approach, Shimei walked into the pavilion and stopped before Chu Waning. Mo-run smiled, but as he made to wave and call out, he saw a cold gleam in Shimei's hand, pointing directly at Chu Waning, still in his trance. Something flickered in Mo-run's head. "Shimei!" he shouted. A chill crawled up his spine, setting his hair on end. He'd said too many final farewells in both lifetimes. To this day, the slightest rustle would put him on high alert. As the saying went, a burned child would dread even painted flames. The Red Lotus Pavilion had once held Chu Waning's corpse for 2 full years, until the day Mo-run died. He didn't care for this place. When he came here, he always saw flashes of those last few months of his past life, when Chu Waning had lain amongst the lotuses with his eyes closed, chest unmoving. Subconsciously, Mo-run thought of the Red Lotus Pavilion as a cursed place, a bottomless maw that might devour the last spark of flame in the world. Shimei turned, lowering his hand and tucking that silver light within his sleeve. "Arun, why are you here early?" Mo-run's heart pounded. He couldn't breathe or think, brows sharply drawn together as he asked, "You're holding..." "Holding what?" Confused, Shimei raised his hand. In his palm lay a silver comb, inlaid with crushed spiritual stones with the power to smooth meridians. Mo-run was speechless. After a long pause, he managed, "You're combing Shizun's hair?" Is something the matter?" Shimei scanned him from head to toe, then knit his slender brows. "You're so pale. Did something happen?" "No, I just..." He trailed off, his face going from white to red. Thankfully, it was dark, so his flush wasn't obvious. After a moment, Mo-run turned aside and cleared his throat. "It's nothing." Shimei watched him silently. Then something seemed to click. He looked stunned. "Did you think..." he began hesitantly. "I didn't," Mo-run hastened to say. Shimei was so good to him, someone he saw as family. Mo-run was dismayed at his own momentary suspicion. He blurted his response out of guilt. Shimei paused. At last, he said, "Arun, I hadn't even finished my sentence." Shimei gently cleared his throat. "You didn't have to deny it so quickly." So Shimei had realized that, for a moment, Mo-run had taken the silver comb he held for a weapon. It was the lingering terror of seeing Chu Waning die in 2 lifetimes. No matter who might have been standing there with their back to Mo-run, even if it had been Shui Meng or Shui Jingyong, Mo-run would have no doubt felt the same shock of fear. But as Mo-run faced Shimei, he steadied himself, though his heart still twisted in his chest. "Sorry," he said, lowering his lashes. The Shimei he knew had always been gentle and kind to everything and everyone. He was rarely indifferent or harsh. But that night by the lotus pond, Shimei watched Mo-run in silence for a very long time. The night wind rose. The lotus leaves curled on the water, their blossoms swaying. "I won't even bring friendship into it, but, Arun, we've known each other almost 10 years. How can you think so little of me?" His voice was soft, devoid of hostile fury or woeful hurt. Mo-Run looked into his eyes, twin pools of clear spring water that seemed to have seen everything, yet refused to bicker or complain. Shimei passed Mo-Run that gleaming silver comb and said mildly, "Before Shizun entered the trance, he asked me to tie up his hair. Since you're here, you can do it." Shimei. But that tall and beautiful man had already strode past him. His steps were unhurried, but he didn't once look back as his solitary figure left the rustling leaves of the Red Lotus Pavilion behind. What the fuck just what? What the fuck just happened? What the fuck just... That was the end of the chapter. What the fuck just happened? I just... All of a sudden it was happening. And I went someplace else entirely. I went so far past the point of reaction that I just looped back around to just reading. Yes. The very first thing that we do when Chuaning comes out of the thing, when he comes out of his trance meditation thing, obviously the first thing we ask is, did you ask Shimei to put it? You know what I mean. There are certain boxes that need to be checked now. What the fuck just happened? But then also, somebody else mentioned, I'm so sorry I didn't see who, but somebody else mentioned that, like, Shimei's had 3 days. So, like, why wouldn't... If he was gonna do something to Chuaning, why would he wait 3 days? Not that there couldn't be a reason why he wouldn't wait 3 days, but why would he wait 3 days? But, like, Mo-Run gets there a little bit early and sees... That was, like, the first moment of actual suspicion on Mo-Run's part of Shimei. I'm just trying to catch up. But see, here's the thing, Maddie, who said, so Shimei confirmed evil, right? Listen, I have now gone from like 60-40 Shimei evil to like 80-20. Because that's a lot to be doing narratively. But it's not 100% because Shimei could still be a red herring. Until we get, like, I need to see Shimei, like, either be directly revealed or hurt somebody or say something that's, like, unequivocal. Because I could very easily be falling for, like, the greatest, most obvious red herring of all time. Right? The most well-plotted, slow burn red herring on the planet, only for Meat Bun to say, actually, it's this bitch over here, but I've made you obsess about Shimei the whole time. She could still do that. But, like, I can't. So now, okay, now if he was wanting to hurt Chuaning, now if he's evil, then I'm trying to decipher what that could tell us about his motivations, whether or not his motivations are based around being in love with Chuaning or being in love with Mo-Run. Because I feel like it's one or the other. But actually, that doesn't really... Because if he was actually trying to hurt Chuaning, the fact that he was trying to hurt Chuaning specifically does not necessarily tell you which one that he's in love with and therefore what his motivations could be. Because it's either playing jealousy, trying to move Chuaning so that Mo-Run will snap out of it and like be obsessed with Shimei again. Or Shimei is in love with Chuaning, feels deeply betrayed that Chuaning would choose Mo-Run and then like want to kill him in a very like tsundere type thing, right? So it really doesn't help. So I've talked through all of this to wind up nowhere. Ooh, I almost said it. I almost said it. But I greatly dislike this woman. I dislike her rather ferociously at this point. If I can keep myself from saying the H word at all, then I'm not truly there yet. But ooh, I almost said it. We're on page 129 for chapter 191, which is called Shizun, Shuemeng and I. Is there going to be some kind of misunderstanding when Chuaning comes out of it? Like Shuemeng and Mo-Run are like fighting like somehow and it gets misconstrued. That's the only thing that comes to mind with that. It's just Shuemeng and I ... Love Bunny says we need to bet on when the H word will happen, please. That'd be hilarious if the rereaders get a pool going as to when the H word happens. That'd be funny. Other than Chuaning, the one most important to Mo-Run was Shimei. Mo-Run had once thought what he felt for Shimei was love, then found it wasn't so. But his intent to care for and cherish him had never changed. Even though he couldn't shake the feeling that Shimei was slowly becoming a stranger, that this beautiful man seemed to be someone entirely different from the youth in his memories. And even though, hang on, I'm redoing that this beautiful man seemed to be someone entirely different from the youth in his memories. And even though Shimei had only brought him that first bowl of wontons on Chuaning's orders, regardless, Ximing was still Ximing. He was the companion who had reached out with a small smile to Mo-Run when he was consumed by darkness and disappointment. The Shixiang who comforted Mo-Run when he was lonely and upset. Come to think of it, Shimei was also an orphan. He had no family in the world. Though Shuemeng was friendly with Shimei, he was proud and arrogant. In all these years, Shimei had never called him by name, only respectfully using the title Young Master. The only one who could really claim to be a friend of Shimei was Mo-Run himself. And yet he'd hurt him. Hiding in the bamboo forest, Shuemeng watched for a long time with his arms crossed. Mo-Run stood unmoving, fiddling with the silver comb as if there was much on his mind. After waiting the better part of an hour with nothing to show for it, Shuemeng started to wonder if he was the idiot. What the hell was he thinking? How could he suspect Shizun and Mo-Run were close in that way? Was his brain broken? The longer he stood, the more awkward he felt, and the less he could justify his actions. At last, Shuemeng turned to leave, but these two martial siblings were cut from the same cloth. Shuemeng made the exact same mistake as Mo-Run. He relaxed and forgot to step with care. Mo-Run leapt to his feet, voice ringing through the gauze hangings. "Who's there?" Under the moonlight, Shuemeng reluctantly showed himself, eyes evasive. He cleared his throat. Mo-Run stared. "What are you doing here?" "Double standards, much?" Shuemeng couldn't make himself meet Mo-Run's eyes. He spoke with such conviction, but he looked left and right, his cheeks reddening. "I just wanted to see Shizun too." Mo-Run abruptly realized that Shuemeng must have followed him. He froze for a moment, then adjusted his expression before Shuemeng could notice. "Since you're here, why don't you take a seat?" Shuemeng did not refuse. He joined Mo-Run in the bamboo pavilion. "Tea or wine?" Mo-Run asked. "Tea," Shuemeng replied. "Wine will get me drunk." There was both tea and wine on the table. Mo-Run set a little pot of red clay over the fire. In the darkness, its light flickered over his chiseled features. He put the 8 treasures tea in the pot, then placed it on the stove. The 2 cousins, one sitting on the bench, one leaning against the pillar, waited for the water to boil. "Why did you come so early?" Shuimeng asked. "Shumei should have stayed till midnight." "I didn't have anything else to do, so why not?" Mo-Run smiled, and lied like a liar. "Didn't you do the same?" Thinking about it, Shuimeng had to agree. Like him, Mo-Run was probably worried about Shizun. This cousin of his had changed after the battle at the Heavenly Rift. After all these years, he was nothing like that churlish youth of the past. The disciple Chu Wanning saved at the cost of his own life had finally grown into a proper young man. Shuimeng lowered his lashes and fell silent a moment, then smiled. "What's up?" Mo-Run asked. "Nothing. I was just thinking about the last time Shizun was in seclusion. You were so angry at Shizun back then. During those 10 days, you only took a single glance at him before saying you weren't skilled enough to care for him and running off to help Dad in the library. I held a grudge against you for that. I never thought you'd changed so much in 7 years." Mo-Run was quiet. Eventually, he said, "Everyone changes." "If you could do it over, would you still run off?" "What do you think?" Shuimeng thought seriously. "You'd probably try to stay with Shizun all 10 days. Eyes downcast, Mo-Run laughed. "What do you think you're laughing at?" Shuimeng shifted, placing a foot on the bench and an elbow on his knee. He let his head fall back, glancing sidelong at his cousin. "Now both of us feel the same about Shizun. Your thoughts wouldn't differ too much from mine." Mo-Run lowered his eyes. Shuimeng squinted at him, then raised his eyes to the bells hanging from the corners of the eaves. "That's good. Back when Shizun passed, I resented so much that your life was saved at the cost of his. But now that I look at it, you're not without a conscience." Mo-Run didn't know how to respond, so he again went, The bells tinkled in the breeze. After some silence, Shuimeng found himself turning to Mo-Run. His eyes sparkled and his brows drew low as he said, I actually have a question for you." "Go ahead." "Tell me the truth. That day, in the backwoods, were you—" Mo-Run knew Shuimeng had been wanting to ask this question for a long time. He danced around it, but couldn't escape it in the end. Mo-Run waited for Shuimeng to continue, but after hemming and hawing for half an age, his face pinking and paling in turns, Shuimeng still couldn't get the words out. He watched Mo-Run carefully as he said, "Were you two really looking for an osmanthus rice cake spirit?" "Were they, looking for a rice cake spirit?" It's the new euphemism. The water in the teapot came to a boil, sending wisps of steam spiraling into the cold night air. They locked gazes. Shuimeng's pupils were blazing, spitting fire, whereas Mo-Run's black eyes were as still as an old well, deep and unfathomable. "Tea's ready." Shuimeng grabbed his arm, staring into his eyes. "Were you two really looking for an osmanthus rice cake spirit?" Mo-Run extricated himself from Shuimeng's hold and picked up the pot on the table. He poured 2 cups, then looked up. "If we weren't looking for a rice cake spirit, what could we be doing?" Shizun wouldn't lie to you. Even if you don't believe me, you should at least believe him." Shuimeng was like a little snake caught by the throat. The hand resting on his knee tightened and he ducked his head. "I do believe him." "Then have some tea," Mo-Run sighed. "Why are you always overthinking?" He lowered his eyes to blow at the piping hot cup. Wreathed in steam, his face was like a mirage, handsome yet hazy, impossible to bring into focus. The 8 treasures tea, he played that perfectly, by the way. Mo-Run, perfect. Flawless. The 8 treasures tea was warm and rich. Shuimeng savored it, letting its comforting heat soothe the pounding of his heart. When he finished, the cup was still warm. Steam rose from its center. Head down, Shuimeng murmured half to Mo Run and half to himself. I overthink because I care about him so much. Really, the slightest rustle and I know, Mo Run said. I'm the same way. Shuimeng turned to look at him. Leaning back against the pillar with his unfinished tea, Mo Run took another sip. Earlier, I had a misunderstanding with Shimei for the same reason. At least you're better off than me, not so impulsive. Shuimeng's curiosity was piqued. No wonder Shimei didn't say much before he left. What happened? It doesn't matter, Mo Run grimaced. I'm even more of an overthinker than you. Shuimeng wrinkled his nose. He hasn't had it easy. People will eat children during a famine if they get desperate enough. If Dad hadn't rescued him, he'd have probably ended up as meat in a stew. Shimei's always been good to you, so you'd better not bully him. Mo Run said. I know. Something just set me off earlier. It won't happen again. The two sat in the pavilion, watching over Chu Wanning as they chatted. It was a strange experience. Mo Run gazed at Shuimeng's handsome, arrogant face in the moonlight. This was the same man who'd carved a hole in his chest in the past life, then met him with tears and blood in every subsequent encounter. He had never expected they could talk like this, so calmly. The moonbeams streamed down on the lotus pond as they steeped tea in warmed wine. Yes, wine. They'd finished the tea, but Shuimeng wasn't ready to leave. Mo Run heated a pot and poured out a few cups. Just a small accompaniment to their conversation. There was no harm, as long as they didn't get drunk. Yet he seemed to have overestimated Shuimeng's tolerance. Between Chu Wanning and his 3 disciples, Chu Wanning could down 1,000 cups, Mo Run could acquit himself respectably, and Shimei was a lightweight, but Shuimeng was utterly hopeless. 2 scant cups of pear blossom white saw him dizzy and incoherent. Wary of causing a disaster, Mo Run hastily removed the wine from the table. Shuimeng was a little tipsy, but he wasn't that far gone. Good, put it away, he chuckled, cheeks ruddy. I've had enough. Mo Run agreed. You should hurry back to rest. Can you walk? If not, I'll send a voice message to tell Uncle to come pick you up. Oh, he doesn't have to. Shuimeng waved him off with a grin. I can walk back by myself. I haven't forgotten the way. Skeptical, Mo Run extended a finger in front of Shuimeng's eyes. What number is this? 1. He pointed at Chu Wanning. Who's this? Shuimeng smiled. Immortal Gaga. Be serious. It's Shizun, I could tell. Clutching the pillar, Shuimeng laughed. Mo Run frowned. This rascal's alcohol tolerance was getting worse every year. Still unconvinced, he pointed at himself. What about me? Take a good look. Don't try to be funny. Who am I? As Shuimeng stared at him, the years seemed to fold over themselves. Mo Run saw that New Year's Eve at Mungpo Hall. Shuimeng had been drunk then, too. He had recognized Shimei, called Chu Wanning Immortal Gaga, then burst into laughter when he looked at Mo Run and called him a dog. Mo Run stared placidly back at him. If Shuimeng called him a dog again, he was prepared to pin him down and beat him up before calling Shui Jingyang to drag the little drunkard home. But Shuimeng only considered him for a long time, expression unreadable. In the end, his lips parted almost in a pout, as if shaping the syllable for dog once again. Mo Run raised a hand, ready to slap it over his mouth. He froze. Shuimeng gazed at him through misty eyes. Quietly, slowly, he said again, Guh. Mo Run was stunned. The word was like the sting of a wasp, a stabbing pain morphing into agony, soon numb from its venom. Something was caught in his throat. He couldn't say anything as he stared at Shuimeng's face, at those young, prideful, headstrong features. Mo Run had seen hatred, fury, and disdain on this face, but never an emotion like this. Shuimeng touched Longcheng at his waist, inlaid with the lunar crystal Mo-Run had sent him after risking his life, taking down a great spirit beast. Without this blade, he mightn't have taken first place at the spiritual mountain competition. Without this blade, he might have ended up a nameless cultivator lost to the annals of time, the bearer of an eternal regret. No! No! Not art! Ah! He had never properly thanked Mo-Run for the gift, for various reasons, because of his pride and because of his sense of dignity. Yet it always ate at him. Whenever he cleaned Longcheng, it weighed on his heart and mind. After they had returned from Ru Feng's sect and Shuimeng learned it was Mo-Run who saved him from Shu Shuanglin, he felt only more tormented. When he woke and heard Mo-Run and Chuaning were missing, he'd sobbed himself hoarse. Everyone had thought he was crying for his Shizun. Only Shuimeng knew that when he lay in his sickbed that night, clutching Longcheng and gazing into the darkness, he'd rasped, "Ge, I'm sorry. Where are you? Are you and Shizun okay?" Mo-Run couldn't say a thing or move a muscle. He seemed to have been rooted to the spot, stock still. Scenes from the past rushed through his mind. Xisheng Peak in the past life, Shuimeng storming up the mountain alone to stand in the chill air of Wushan Hall, asking, eyes red-rimmed, what he'd done with Chuaning. "Moe-yu," Shuimeng had said. "Look back properly." When he became Emperor Taishan-Jun and Shuimeng joined hands with Meihan Shui to attack him, in broad daylight, Meihan Shui cut off his escape while Shuimeng roared, features twisting, driving that scimitar into his chest, blood spraying. "Moe-yu," Shuimeng had said, "you're beyond salvation. This world has had its fill of you." Those hateful grudges, blazing furiously as they swirled around him. The day Chuaning died in this lifetime, and Shuimeng leaping up with a roar and pinning him to the wall, pulse beating in his neck as he shouted like a trapped beast. "How could you say he didn't save you? How could you say he didn't save you?" Another flash of memory, appearing as a faint glow before him. Perhaps Mo-Run had stood stiffly for too long. Long enough for those oldest, blurriest emotions, blurriest memories, to creep up on him. We'll get to the art now, because it's just not going to stop. It's just not going to stop. It's just not going to stop. Look at this. Look at these boys. They're just boys. They're just boys. They're just boys who want to be friends. They're just friendly boys. Ugh. I can't with this, okay? Too much has happened in this one single fuck-ass stream, I must say. Way too much. He saw two youths. One was skin and bones, trembling like an abandoned dog, waiting his next beating. Fucking, that was a sentence. Hang on, let's try that again. He saw two youths. One was skin and bones, trembling like an abandoned dog, awaiting his next beating. He hunched anxiously at one of the tables in the disciples' quarters, sitting on a little stool with his hands tightly fisted over his knees, unmoving. He recognized himself. The other youth had a complexion pure as jade or snow, precious and proud as a peachick coming into his dazzling plumage. He stood, a finely wrought scimitar at his waist, and a foot propped on a nearby chair. Clear black eyes stared unblinkingly down at Mo-Run. "Mom told me to come visit you," the young Shuimeng muttered. "You're my new cousin?" He paused. "Kind of pathetic, aren't you?" Mo-Run said nothing. He kept his head down, unaccustomed to such intense scrutiny. "Hey, what's your name?" Shuimeng asked. Mo something? Tell me, I forgot." Mo-Run didn't answer. "I'm asking you a question. Aren't you going to say something?" Still no answer. "Are you mute?" After 3 attempts, the young Shuimeng burst into exasperated laughter. "They say you're my cousin, but look how timid you are. You're so frail the wind could blow you over. There's no way I have such an embarrassing gaga. What a joke. Mo-Run hung his head lower still, silent. A blur of crimson appeared before him. It took Mo-Run a moment to realize it was a stick of Tangulu. The hand that offered the sugar-coated hawthorn did it so roughly, the stick nearly poked him in the nose. Here, Shui-Meng said. I can eat it anyway. He had brought a box of sweets with him as well, and now tossed it carelessly on the table like a coin to a beggar. Mo-Run could only watch in dazed shock. He thought Shui-Meng too generous, impossibly generous. No one had ever offered him so much to eat at once, even if he begged on his knees. What? Shui-Meng frowned. What do you mean? What are you trying to say? Can I have the whole stick? Huh? Just one berry is enough. Or if you can't finish it, maybe I could... What's wrong with you? Are you a dog? You want to eat leftovers? Shui-Meng's eyes widened, his tone one of disbelief. Of course it's all yours. This entire stick and that entire box are yours. The lacquered box was beautifully crafted, golden line work depicting a scene of cranes amidst clouds. Mo-Run had never seen an item of such luxury before. He didn't dare reach out, but his eyes fixed on the box with a look so intent Shui-Meng's skin prickled with goosebumps. He thought he might as well open it for Mo-Run. The rich scents of cream and fruit and bean paste wafted out with the lift of the lid, mingling under his nose. The sweets were arrayed in a neat grid of 3 by 3 for a total of 9. Some were golden brown and crisp, some were soft and delicate, while others were gleaming and fragile, wrapped in a beautiful translucent skin that offered a faint glimpse of the soft red bean paste within. Shui-Meng spared them scarcely a glance. He pushed the box in front of Mo-Run and said, impatient, Go on and eat. If that's not enough, I have more. I can't finish all this, so giving it to you is perfect. The little Gongja had a bad attitude and an unkind tone, constantly rolling his clear eyes in pompous disdain. But the desserts he offered were sweet and soft. Through the bitterness and blood of another lifetime, that distant sweetness seemed to return to Mo-Run's tongue. Mo-Run gazed at Shui-Meng's wine-flushed face beneath the moonlight, and Shui-Meng squinted back. After a moment, Shui-Meng laughed, so tipsy even he didn't know what he was laughing at. He let go of the pillar as if to clap Mo-Run amiably on the shoulder, but his legs were unsteady. Stumbling, he fell into Mo-Run's arms. Gah. Still staring, Mo-Run slowly lowered his lashes and patted Shui-Meng gingerly on the back. The evening breeze tousled his bangs, obscuring his handsome face. What expression Mo-Run wore, only heaven knew. A long time later, when the pathetic lightweight Shui-Meng had fallen asleep snoring in his arms, Mo-Run finally spoke, voice rough. Shui-Meng, I'm sorry. I'm not worthy to be your gaga. I'm gonna be sick. Jesus fucking Christ. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you... We're on page 141 for chapter 192, which is called Shizun Gave Me My Life. So it's gonna be more lighthearted fun. That's not meant to bulldoze you at all. Did I say the page? 141, chapter 192. Shizun Give Me My Life. That's what we'll be reading next time. Jesus, why would you... I just smacked the mic again. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to me? Why? God. I think it's interesting how the introduction of Shui-Meng into Mo-Run's life was thematically nuanced. Because Shui-Meng was being kind of a, young, immature, rich kid dick. but he also brought Mo Run food. More food than, like, Mo Run didn't even understand. And so for Mo Run's brain, that was an asshole doing something kind, which is more nuanced than Mo Run was used to absorbing. Because back then, he really liked to harshly compartmentalize. You are either helping me, and you are therefore a friend who should be showered with all of the love and loyalty, even past the point of all reason, because he roughly equates that to his mother and gets that impulse from his mother being the only person who was on his side. Or you are fully against me and you are cruel. You are just like everybody else when I was a kid who beat me and stole food and was shit to my mom. You're just like everybody else, so I'm going to hate you forever. Shui Meng was kind of in between there. He was a dick, but he didn't take away food. He brought him food. That's an interesting place to put Shui Meng in Mo Run's overall psyche. It's really interesting. I'm going to go cry about it, but that's really interesting. If you would like to talk about this goddamn stream, then today's Thursday. Then next week on Tuesday for the book chat at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For patrons and YouTube members, we will be talking about what we read today. So it should be rather uneventful, but come along and jump in if you would like. There's also the public Discord if you just want to chat there over the weekend and while we're all waiting and you want to theorize and go insane. That is also available. The invite is down in the description box. Please, I'm remembering this time, please give this stream a like if you enjoyed yourself or you were devastated by the narrative. Either one. And I will see you guys on Tuesday to continue reading. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope you please take care of yourselves. Okay? Please take care of yourself this weekend and always, but especially this weekend. Please take care of yourself. And I will see you guys in just a few days for more of Erha. All right. I'm going to go cry.